My name's Jim Beckvar, and I'm a professor of chemistry at the University of Texas, El Paso. I've been here for 32 years, and I've been in a great experiment on peer-led team learning for the past 11 years. We started the program in 2000. I was challenged by Ben Flores, who was then the director of the Model Institutions of Excellence grant from NSF. He challenged me to try to do something about the rather poor passing rate in general chemistry the first semester. That was the course I was teaching at the time, and he suggested that I look into peer-led team learning as a strategy to try to improve the passing rate. It has led to a dramatic increase in the number of chemistry majors at UTEP. The rise is still going on. We probably now have close to 200 majors in chemistry at the current time.
I've set up the equation. I've sort of given you a framework. So go ahead and spend 1 minute extracting the value of X and then the pH by using the value of X.
It's very intimidating to go from being in classes of 15 to 30 kids to walking into a huge lecture class of 200 people in a room. And it's a really big transition, and it's very scary. And for a lot of students, it's so intimidating to go and talk to a professor to ask for help, because we know that our professors are also doing research and some teach other classes. So it's very intimidating for them. So peer-led team learning kind of builds like a little bridge, if you will. It makes them more comfortable with us, and so anything that they want to talk to the professor about, they can tell us, and we could talk to the professor, or we can encourage them to talk to us.
A lot of our freshman students are Mexican-American students, most of them from poor families, and most of them are very shy. So when I see these workshops that the peer leaders are doing with 12 to 15 students, I have seen students through the years coming from being very shy students to being very successful students. I can give you an example of one of my students that finished a master's degree, and she was one of the best students in chemistry. And she was very, very shy. And now, I remember last year when she was giving a talk at the National ACS meeting, she was no longer shy.
Currently, we have approximately 1,000 every year taking general chemistry first semester. Those 1,000 students go to lecture for 2 hours a week, and they go to workshop for 2 hours a week, each one of those workshops being overseen by a peer leader. The workshops are small sections, so in some way the peer-led team learning program is like the little red schoolhouse of old, where the teacher had the older students facilitating the learning for the younger ones, so that the teacher didn't have to be doing everything with every student at all times. That's very much like what peer-led team learning is. So the students are taking what I call a FAR exam. FAR means Formative Assessment of Readiness, and it's my version of RATS, Readiness Assessment Testing, that's done by team-based learning proponents. But team-based learning proponents don't give RATS every day that there's a lecture. I give a FAR exam every day. So I use the peer leaders to administer the examinations and pass out the multiple choice recording instruments called Apperson form. I hate multiple choice exams, but there's no way to grade a class this size and get the results of the examination back to the students on the same day without having the use of multiple choice. It's a horrible format because it gives the students too many clues as to what the answer might be, rather than having them depend on what they have learned. I have too many students to individually grade each exam and get those results done the same day. These exams provide instantaneous feedback as to whether the students are keeping up with the material in the course. So it's useful to the students and it's useful to the peer leaders. So right now the peer leaders are passing out a second set of Apperson forms, because after this individual quiz is finished, I'll allow the students to work in teams, somewhat like the team-based learning that they do in workshop. Initially, the preview meetings happened just once for 1 hour per week, but we found that we couldn't cover all of the necessary work and background work that needed to be done to prepare the leaders and to engage the leaders in effective workshop sections. Initially, the 1 hour per week would be used for discussing how are your students doing, are they learning the material, what are their grades, are they engaging in the homework that's being assigned, what strategies are you using? And we learned very quickly that we needed a second hour per week, and now we have 2 hours per week, 1 hour on Monday and 1 hour on Friday, where discussions take place at a very high level in terms of education. The faculty members who are teaching the class may ask some probing questions to engage the peer leaders in a discussion. And pretty soon, the peer leaders discuss back and forth as if the faculty weren't there, and they really buy into the educational process in which they are involved. And I think that's a very, very healthy thing. It helps in their development as leaders.
Hey, how come we don't get that? It's extra credit, so no questions need to be asked or answered.
But there should be equivalence, right?
The extra credit mechanism in his is different from his. And there's like 10 other mechanisms about this you have to look
If I was a
at.
student, then I'd complain about the whole picture then, because I want my 3 credit hours to be worth the same 3 credit hours as somebody taking.
Jesse Murillo did not agree with something that one of the professors had said. He felt okay to bring to everybody's attention that he thought it was unfair that one group of students would get extra credit for something that was not available to the other group of students. So Dr. Narayan was going to give extra credit for his students in his lecture, and Jesse was saying, but wait a minute, that's not fair to the students in Dr. Beckbar's section if they don't get this opportunity to have this extra credit also. And the importance of that has nothing to do with the extra credit. The importance of that, in my mind, has to do with the opportunity for a peer leader to engage in meaningful discussion of the fairness of evaluation and assessment of students. This is the 11th year of this program, and it didn't happen at the beginning. It didn't happen even in the middle of that 11 years. It's been the last few years where it's been very obvious to me that the students, in order for them to take ownership, the students being the peer leaders, in order for the peer leaders to take ownership of the program, they have to feel that their input, their contribution is important. And you have to allow that freedom. I provide food for the peer leaders. The preview meetings take place during lunch. From a long time ago, I have consciously been aware that people who eat together and share a meal together belong to a family. This is a cooperative environment. They are learning to be part of the team.
That's going to be 0.001 molar. All right? So I want you guys to tell me the final pH. So this is for team 1, this is for team 2, and this is for team 3. All of them have the same starting concentration. Yes. All right. You can neglect this, right? You can neglect the water.
Then you, if it's right, you can just divide.
So prefers you the check.
The national model suggests that workshops be from 6 to 8 students per workshop per peer leader during a workshop session. And I think that's too few, in my opinion. I think 12 students to 15 students is a much better size for a workshop because of the lively discussion that allows. And the peer leaders can group the students into teams, can form students of teams, and the teams can compete with each other And I think the competitive aspect of having a larger workshop section than 6 to 8 is very valuable for the students taking the course.
Well, of this class specifically, it's very individualized, so it helps you a lot to understand the material in depth and to really comprehend all of the equations and stuff that we're using for the various, I guess, components of what we're learning. And it's cool because you get to not only get one-on-one help like with the peer leaders, but you get to help each other understand, and that's pretty much it. It's a lot better than reading a book all day by yourself and listening to someone talk about it.
The advantage of PLTL learning environments is the fact that you have someone who's gone through that class before, who's gone through that subject before.
I thought I finished second semester general chemistry and knew it front and back. And now going back, I have learned so much more this semester. Learning with them, and I actually love when they correct my mistakes because they're learning something, they're doing something, they're catching my mistakes.
What is this pressure right here? We'll call it P. What is that?
What's going on here is that the peer leader is guiding the students through some actual hands-on activities. These activities I call explorations. And they show the students exactly what they're reading about when they read about something like a phase diagram in a book.
There are a few bubbles.
The powerful thing about explorations is that they can see and have to grapple with the concept that's being involved in what they see. This is chemistry in action. The peer leader is able to probe a deeper understanding of what is going on in the chemical system. Students actually see some hands-on activities during the peer-led sessions. That's really a unique aspect of the program that we've developed here at UTEP.
We're going to try to help students learn the concept of redox reactions, as well as refresh a little bit about nomenclature.
What happens when you mix that copper wire with silver nitrate? I want someone from this group over here to write the whole equation on the board. And then someone from this group is going to go ahead and write the oxidation numbers.
2 plus already over here. And then you just need to cancel out with 2e, so it cancels out.
Plus 2e, the charge stays the same no matter what. It doesn't matter if it's 2 or 1.
Right here, why isn't it positive instead of 0?
Here, they just wrote out up there that it's copper 2, but it's just a solid. It's not an ion.
You can share.
Be very careful with the droplets because it'll tend to move the copper wires, okay? So you want to hit it right at the center and cover the entire little pieces of copper wire with silver nitrate, okay?
Right in the middle. Oh, mess it up.
So the purpose of you guys having the microscopes there is so you guys can observe what actually happens, okay? Do you guys all see that happening within your own places?
We are going to play musical chemical chairs, which is going to help refresh their nomenclature skills a little bit. We'll see how that turns out.
I'm going to hit the music and you guys are going to go around the room in the chairs. They're very well spaced, so there might be, you guys need to be very careful. Don't be violent. And when I stop the music, you guys can choose whichever polyatomic ion or anion you want to get rid of. And then that person will have to name their card, which all you guys have blue cards, with the red card that's on the stools. You have to combine it, and then on the board, you'll write the correct formula.
this is a development of stories. This is stories about chemistry, chemistry in action. Many of these developed because I have been giving chemistry circus performances out in the community that engage the students at the 5th and 6th grades in elementary but very fundamental concepts of science. The peer leaders developed many of these stories. They have contributed enormously to the engagement of students in these explorations. The peer leaders have made 70, to this point, between 2000 and 2011, the peer leaders have made 78 presentations of their original contributions to the literature of learning. They meet together here in a somewhat much more formal sense, even though it's a relatively informal meeting. But that sense of belonging and developing bonds with their fellow peer leaders carries on long after the preview meeting is over. They get together and talk about peer-led team learning, and I love it that they are talking about education and the value of what they're doing and how to do it better, that it's not just something that takes place here in a 1 hour period of time, that those discussions carry on after hours, after they're done with this preview session. They get together and talk, and they visit each other's workshops.
And then at the end of the semester, it's like, it clicks.
Well, why should we do the lab today? I don't learn visually. Okay, well, you still have to do it.
Exactly.
And it'll still help to some extent.
It's all about finding the way to understand it. Like, especially chemistry, studying chemistry, you can study chemistry so many different ways, you know?
And it's also the best.
It's nowhere near one of the best books in the world.
It's one of the best.
The university.
Yeah, it's right along the bottom. Yeah, they don't read it, right? So
they're gaining so many skills. You know, their grades are great. I think it makes them better students. I think they're all probably better students for being a peer leader because it really keeps them engaged. They go on to graduate school, or medical school or whatever, and but their presence, their ability to get up in front of other people, their whole demeanor, their personality becomes much more self-confident, and those students really turn into the students you want to hire or you would want to go to your graduate school. So I think the benefits for peer leaders are enormous.
Chemistry majors at our school increased, and actually it's a little bit higher because we have a biochemistry degree now, so it's actually increased a little bit more. Now, some of the students have taken chemistry in high school to really feel strongly about the workshops because it's active learning. They're not sitting in a 200 student lecture course just taking notes. Forge Valerie.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
So is this a model then? So now it's gone to what, 5 classes?
Yeah.
You use this?
Yeah. And
these peer leaders paid?
Yes, we're paid. We're paid 10 hours. So we have 2 2-hour workshops. We must attend the previews, they're mandatory, the lectures, and we have office hours. So what we did is we integrated the workshop into it. So instead of the 1-hour lecture, they take a workshop that's 1 hour and 50 minutes.
Okay.
So technically not 2 hours, still considered one.
Okay.
And so what it is the workshop is split into 2 components. We have the dry component and the wet component.
You published this yet?
No.
It's good stuff, man. This right here is really, that's the story. So how could we get this information? I'm at the Colorado School of Mines, and we're going to have to change our freshman chemistry program because of the requirements of the engineering department.
Maybe I can get a photograph. Thank you.
So they can read it, do it, and then see it.
it's good.
Yeah.
And we are always amazed that given her age, what she's able to do. And it's all about what she's learned how to do with this peer-led team learning. So we get a twofer out of it. You got the students coming through, and you're creating the real leaders in STEM education. You know, one of UTEP's desires is to become an R1 school. This is the Seacorns. And Leslie's decided to go to med school, but many will be PhDs and come back and teach and do research. So this is a fabulously wonderful program.
And the other thing that you're obviously learning is a skill that isn't the unintended consequence or the schools don't have an opportunity. There isn't an opportunity for oral communication in schools at the university level, and very few schools emphasize it. So you graduate from school without having had the ability or the experience or at speaking in front of groups and speaking to crowds and speaking to people, and that's so much a part of any occupation, but it's not part of a curriculum hardly anywhere.
That's correct.
And so you get all of these kids get that experience in speaking in front of groups. Great.